Hello and welcome to the Prelims PYQ discussion by NeenvIAS. The theme for today's video is prominent personalities before 1900. It's a theme from modern history. You have 4 questions for discussion today. The first one is from the 2023 Prelims. With reference to Indian history, Alexander Rhea, A.H. Longhurst, Robert Seville, James Burgess, and Walter Elliot were associated with, and you have 4 options: archaeological excavations, establishment of English press in colonial India, establishment of churches in princely states, construction of railways in colonial India. Now, it's a factual question. If you don't know the names, it's difficult to guess. Every option will look similar. But there is one catch, not very obvious, but one catch. That is, look at these last 2 statements: establishment of churches in princely states or construction of railways in colonial India. Railways are associated with viceroys and not so many people as such. We just know one name. And for example, churches in princely states, we don't know any name. It's not part of textbooks. So these are not familiar names. Or for example, English press. We have names like James Augustus Hickey, but not many names are familiar. But here you have a series of names, and archaeological excavation is one domain where a lot of Britishers have contributed. For example, there was a class of people called Orientalists. They were interested in Indian culture. Alexander Cunningham, William Jones, Max Muller. So there are a lot of people. You just take the case of the Harappan excavation. Everyone who is involved in the initial stages were foreigners. So in that regard, this is one domain where a lot of foreigners were involved. So such a guess can be taken. Otherwise, it's a very factual question. The right answer is archaeological excavations. A.H. Longhurst, for example, was in charge of dealing with Nagarjunakonda excavation, or Robert Swell was part of the Amravati Stupa excavation, and this person, Alexander Rhea, he was part of finding a sarcophagus. Sarcophagus means burial, from the hillocks of Pallavaram in Tamil Nadu. So these people are known archaeologists in that time. Some were part of the Archaeological Survey of India as well. So that's the first question. Moving into the second question, you have 3 names here and their designations or their contributions on the second right hand side. First name, Radhakanta Deb, first president of British Indian Association. Second, Gusulu Lakshmi Narasu Chetty, founder of the Madras Mahajan Sabha. Third, Surendranath Banerjee, founder of Indian Association. Here again, there needs to be some conceptual understanding. There are 2 organizations starting with the term Madras. One is Madras Mahajan Sabha and one is Madras Native Association. Both sound similar, but both have very different ends. And the names of both the founders should be by hearted, and it's mentioned in standard textbooks like Spectrum as well. And Madras Mahajan Sabha doesn't have Lakshmi Narayan Shetty as its founder. It has 3 other names: M. Veeraragavacharya, G. Subramania Iyer, and P. Anandachalu. Very famous names in pre-Congress associations. If you know this particular fact, this option can be eliminated. So 2, C and D will go out. Then you have option 1 and option 1 and 3. And this is a fundamental option. Surendranath Banerjee Indian Association. Very famous pre-Congress organization. So something very fundamental. Radhakanta Deb then becomes obvious if you know the third option. And this is correct as well. He is the first president of British Indian Association. So when you study organizations, it's important that you don't by heart them, but you understand the intricacies behind that as well, just like Madras Mahajan Sabha and Madras Native Association. Moving to the next question, which among the following events happened earliest? Again, a chronological question. So every time in every domain, both in art and culture and modern India, be it in ancient history as well, we are seeing chronology based questions. Here, Swami Dayanand established Arya Samaj, Deenbandhu Mitra wrote Neel Darpan, Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay wrote Anand Math, Satyendranath Tagore became the first Indian to succeed to Indian civil service. Some people will know the years. For example, Arya Samaj 1875, very famous. Satyendranath Tagore's elevation to the Indian civil service 1863, very famous. So some of them you will know. Look at these 2 options. Neel Darpan is associated with Indigo Revolt. Indigo Revolt is some comparatively older peasant revolt. Took place in 1859. So it should be associated with that. And Bankim Chandra Chatterjee Chattopadhyay's Anand Math is related with the Swadeshi movement 1905. So it should be later. So these 2 options can be associated with events and separated. And Arya Samaj is very famous, the founding year. It's fundamental when we study Dayanand Saraswati. It comes in 1875 and this is 1863. So in that sense, Neel Darpan is the oldest. It belongs to 1858-59 time period, same as the Indigo Revolt. So this is the oldest. Satyendranath Tagore comes second. After that comes Arya Samaj, 7th April 1875. And finally Anand Math in 1882, just 3 years before the founding of Congress. The last question of this discussion, the Vittal Vidansak, the first monthly journal to have untouchable people as its target, was published by, 4 names, Gopal Baba Walangar, Jyotiba Phule, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi and Bhimrao Ambedkar. Now, the question has a catch, which is the first monthly journal. And the tradition of publications of journals in India began even before, way before Mahatma Gandhi or Ambedkar. You have social reformers writing and publishing. So, and this is a journal that has untouchables or target audience. So, both Jyotiba Phule and Walangar addressed this particular issue, the distress of untouchables. And Gandhi and Ambedkar also talked about that, but Gandhi talked about it in a later stage during his constructive program after 1920s. And Ambedkar became active as an intellect or in Indian politics during the same period as well. You know, the Pune Pact of 1932. So these two people predated them at least by a generation. And among them, Jyotiba Phule hasn't written this. This is written by Gopal Baba Walangar. And this is something that you should study. You should be very familiar with this particular name. In fact, in the first slide of this particular theme, I've given his picture. So Gopal Baba Walangar was the inspiration to Ambedkar. Someone who has written about this particular theme even before Ambedkar. So he wrote this first publication called Vittal Vidansak, or The Destroyer of Brahminical and Ceremonial Pollution, in 1888. He was known as Gopal Krishna as well. It's the same name. That's another thing you have to remember. He was also born in the Mahar caste. So Mahar caste is the caste of Ambedkar. Gopal Baba was also born in the same caste. He developed something called the racial theory. So drain theory of Dadabhai Naoroji, just like that you have something called the racial theory by Gopal Krishna to explain the oppression. And he was an inspiration to Ambedkar. So it's a big name, something that is not often discussed, something that you should understand. UPSC has asked it in 2020. So that's the questions. So conceptual fundamental questions will fetch you marks. Factual questions, they are risky, but still you can attempt them with some kind of fundamental understanding. Thank you for listening.